I assume that we can start this workshop following the message from our host. So I would like to welcome you all very much in this first workshop of this conference with the title A Knowledge and Science Bridge Towards a Global Circular Economy. And the participants in this session have been introduced previously, so very much welcome to Susanne, to Jorge, Anastasia, Christian, and Janis to discuss together some of the big issues in circular economy. Very much welcome. And as a brief introduction, I would like to share a few slides to stimulate a little bit the discussion. So I will try to do that now, and I hope it works. And then I should also switch my own screen. If that works also, then that would be nice. Let me see how this works. Yeah. So, I hope this is all visible to all the participants to this workshop throughout the world, I assume. My name is Ardi Dortmans. I will try to moderate this session. So as a brief introduction to myself, I work for TNO, which is an applied research institute in the Netherlands. I'm the Director of Science for Circular Economy and Environment. And I'm also a member of the Dutch National Science Agenda on Circular Economy and member of the mission team for the Knowledge and Innovation Agenda on Circular Economy. So you can imagine that my life starts with circular economy in the morning and ends in the evening late. I'm very enthusiastic about this topic. Looking at the Knowledge and Science Agenda of Circular Economy in the Netherlands, we of course see that science and knowledge is an important topic to get to a circular economy. Our national ambition is to achieve full circularity by 2050, which of course is a huge challenge. And TNO is a significant contributor to these developments. And the national agenda basically has 3 pillars, which is about circular design. How can we design circular products, but that includes design of circular value chains. You cannot make circular products without an appropriate value chain. The second topic is about circular resources and circular processes. So you need to have the materials either, ideally, of course, in a fully closed circular loop, and the circular processes to make things. And thirdly, and maybe also for the discussion today, that is a very important topic, is what we call in the Netherlands trust, behavior, and acceptance. And that is from the idea that technology is nice and probably you should have it. But in the end, other factors are equally or perhaps even more important to realize the circular economy we want to. People, the role of people, the role of business models, and things like that are equally, if not more important. So that is why this third topic is so crucial. We all are aware, and that I guess this was also part of the general introduction to this conference, is that circular economy means a strong transition. So transition. We see that we have a number of these transitions playing together, and that knowledge and science is equally important for all of these transitions. And that is one of the questions of today, is whether they can be viewed in isolation or not. Science is the journey, knowledge is the destination. I assume that is something that everyone will recognize. So maybe a few words about the transition, the complexity of the transition. Took a simple example for circular plastics. We need to get to new technologies, new designs of plastics, new plastic products that are much more easily suitable for reuse or recycling. So that is technology part. Equally important is that we need to apply true costing of plastics, for instance. A lot of hidden costs in the system, which do not always enable the move to circularity. There is the important role of both producers and consumers to work on these things, to accept and move through legislation and other incentives. And of course, there is a need to change from a linear to a circular value chain in order to get all these things moving. So if you look at these four factors alone, this is a fairly complicated picture, which will require a lot of hard work to get there. We will come back to that in the workshop today, I'm sure. Even more important probably is that the transition is, the transition to a circular economy is not on itself. Sometimes I call it a material transition, but at the same time we have an energy transition and a digital transition, and all these things happen at the same time. And we need to really involve more than perhaps in the last decades all the players that are important. So government, industry, science, but society as a whole, including citizens. We also will come back to that later in this workshop. And of course, transitions mean dynamics. The dynamics in these transitions are fairly large. So we need to build new institutions, new structures, and phase out existing structures that do not really contribute to a circular society. So these are big changes, big steps, with a lot of questions, where knowledge and science are very much asked and needed to sketch out the proper pathways and ways to implement to arrive at the future we want. So this is where I want to stop my brief introduction. I hope I can now stop sharing my screen, if that all works, and then I can go back to my original setting. So, oops, that is not, yeah, I hope it works. Yeah. So then I can see the faces of my colleagues in the workshop once again. Thank you very much for waiting. Of course, we have a huge challenge to face. And it's nice to be able to speak to you about a number of these challenges. And one of the questions that was also already asked in the introduction to this conference, and that's a question I would like to pose to you all, and that is a very simple question. The question is, what is the most inspiring circular economy project you're working on today? Because it is about implementation, it's about getting things moving. I'm sure you're all working on a topic today, so maybe you can sketch in a few sentences, a few words, what is your most favorite project you're working on today? That as a start for this meeting. And I go in a circular way throughout my screen. So, Susanne, could I start with you, please?
Okay, Ardi, thank you very much. Well, I think just coming from where you've just started your introduction, the most favorite project I'm working on is our Circular Economy Initiative in Germany, because it brings together all the different stakeholders from science, from industry, from civil society, and from politics. and to together jointly generate these ideas of what we need to do to facilitate this transition is really what gets me up every morning and really motivates me and keeps me working on it. So that's my short answer to this question.
Thank you very much. Jorge, can I ask you the same question? You're still muted.
Good morning for all. My name is Jorge. I'm working in circular economy here in Portugal in my postdoctoral. The concept is new for us in Mozambique, but here I'm doing the research, and I think that when I finish my study here, I will go to my country and I will start a group with this type of science. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm continuing my circle, and then the next one is Christian.
Okay, thanks, Ardi. So I'm working at a project that is called Metabolon, and you can see the research center that is focusing on the work at Metabolon in my background. So it's a landfill site that was transformed into a research center. And there we look at all different kinds of waste streams and try to find what are the best ways to pre-process it and then to transform it into either secondary raw materials or energy, and then really try to make look at the balance. So not only at the energy balance, but also at the ecological footprint of these processes, and then try to find, okay, which one is best for which application.
Sounds very challenging. Thank you. Anastasia.
So, hello, good morning, everybody. I'm working on circular bioeconomy, waste-based bioeconomy, which means that we try to find pathways for the valorization of all the agricultural residues and agro-food residues, and food residues as well, through the cascade biorefinery process, optimizing, of course, not only products, but energy consumption, as we say, energy, and closing the loop with energy, integrating this cascade biorefinery with pyrolysis in order to produce biochar for closing the loop with agriculture. And we try to apply this in the most intensive agricultural area of Greece, which is the Thessaloniki region.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think challenging examples of what's happening in the world, because we are a fairly international movement, of course. Of course, I guess you will all agree that knowledge and science is a very important parameter in the transition to a circular economy. And my first question would be to Susanne, that say in going into this transition, you probably cannot rely on existing knowledge and science. So going into the transition, you probably need new knowledge and science, not only as such, but also in the way we create knowledge and science. So my question to you would be, what are the challenges that we face in going into the circular economy transition from the perspective of the knowledge creation process? Could you maybe reflect on that a little bit?
Sure, Ardi, my pleasure. And it goes back to what I just mentioned and what was mentioned numerous times this morning as well. The transition towards a circular economy it's a fundamental process, and it affects society as a whole. So it affects us as citizens, as users, as consumers. It affects business, the way products are being produced, sold, or rented, possibly politics, of course, the new framework conditions that we need, and of course, science. We have all new range of different questions that need to be asked now of how this transition can materialize. So we think that we need all of those actors in this knowledge generation process: science, industry, policy, and society. And like I just mentioned, this is the approach we've taken in the Circular Economy Initiative. and try to see if this works also. We have 3 ministries on board. It's the Ministry of Education and Research, first of all, which is funding us as well. We have the Ministry of the Environment and the Ministry of Economic Affairs. And those are certainly the most fundamental ministries we need to have involved, but I could continue. We need agriculture in there, finance, all the different resources there. We have more than 20 science institutions that are working with us, more than 20 businesses and big industrial companies that some of you might know. Well, BMW, Daimler, I guess, are well known, SAP and Henkel. And we've got the civil society organizations working with us as well. And jointly with all these different perspectives, we discuss what are the barriers towards progressing towards a circular economy, what are possible solutions, and we develop joint policy recommendations that are then presented to politics. And through these processes, which can be demanding, obviously, but we have these policy recommendations now, which are science-based. We have, through the civil society organizations as well, ensured that they have an ambition level, that we really can progress with them towards a circular economy. And these recommendations also, I call it, maybe withstand the reality checks from industry and say, okay, yeah, this is the way forward. This enables us to develop the relevant circular business models. And if you have then such jointly developed recommendations for policy, I think they form a very solid basis on which political decision-making can take place. And that's why I think these big stakeholder processes are very important for these kind of transitions that the circular economy also presents.
I agree completely with you. We've seen the same processes developing in the Netherlands. So as we say in the Netherlands, the time that we can see little beds of flowers is gone. You need scale up, really scale up to big initiatives, maybe nationwide initiatives, where say these complex multi-stakeholder initiatives are required in order to get to the transition we need. So thank you very much. If we go a little bit further in this direction, in the end, knowledge and science should land, say, at the stakeholders who can really use it or do something with it. So that can be maybe government, but certainly also industry. Christian, you mentioned that you're very active in this field, sitting, what I understood, actually on a waste dump in order to to get things moving. So how is your perspective on, say, this process of knowledge creation and knowledge transfer between research, knowledge science, and industry? Because I think everyone is aware of something like a valley of death. Where you can develop science, but in the end does not land into an application. How is your view on that?
First of all, what we found out throughout the last years was that for us, the knowledge transfer is not from research to industry, but it's also from industry to research, because there are a lot of companies that already have a lot of experience also in sustainability and have a lot of sustainability programs. But what we changed in our research is that we really stopped only working in the laboratory, but also went to upscaling. And now on our landfill side, we are solely working with pilot scale plants in order to bring established processes in laboratory scale to a bigger scale, so that then industry can see that it's really working. And this has been great so far for us, and we got really good contacts with the industry. And what then grew out of that is that we initiated an industry research network, partner network. And within this network, actually all research institutions, but also our industrial companies can pitch ideas, what they want to investigate or what they want to try. And then there's a council, which is made up of members from industry, research, but also politics, and they will decide, okay, which one to pursue. And we made sure through this process that we really develop something that is of value to the local companies in our region. And this especially has been great for small and medium-sized enterprises that very often do not have the capacity to do very intensive research. And what was interesting to see that at the beginning, the industry was very skeptic about it, because they said, okay, we did this before in the past, but then when the research started, it took very long, and then we couldn't really use the results. So what we then said, we designed 3 different kind of different projects with different length and different intensity. So we have small scale projects that are like 6 months to 1 year, medium-sized projects like 2 years, and then big research projects 3 years. And especially the small projects, they helped us really to build a lot of trust. And now the companies are really happy about it, because they know who to ask, and they know that they can get feedback very easily and very fast. And so what I would say is that it is not something that is happening immediately. So it takes some time to build up trust from both sides. But once it's working, and that also the industry sees that their ideas are taken seriously, then it works quite well. And what we are doing for our solely research projects, we organize conferences where we invite industry, and also we do some small research trade fairs also on our landfill side. So, and then the industry can come, and this is also where our site really helps us, because it's kind of a symbol. What if we do not have circular economy, then what happens? So it's very easy for us through that to actually also convince companies to change something. And we see now that since last year, maybe also due to the Corona crisis, but I think it was happening before, now companies start to think more sustainably, and even small companies, they now think, okay, this is something that we really need to do. And this is helping a lot at the moment.
Yes, thank you very much. Very inspiring example. Very good, thank you. You already mentioned that, say, in developing these things, we need to learn new things. So the way we learn things, but also the way we transfer knowledge to our children and how they learn things is probably something that is very important, because the transition may last maybe 30, 40 years, and our generation will be gone by then. So this is really the future of our children, I guess, at least my children. So Anastasia, I think you have considered, say, the issue of what are learning processes, and what are things that we need to develop from this perspective. Could you reflect a little bit on that? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, it's all this. Thank you. I said, but it was muted, that it's an issue where I work very much, and I'm very keen on it. And as a university professor, from engineering domain, I have some experience on how the learning, what kind of learning we need now towards those transitions that we discussed. And but the main experience to me comes from the heart that I have as vice president of the Mediterranean Network of Engineering Schools, where there we discuss very much, and we work very much in learning and capacity building and in practice and creating community of practice. But okay, I will tell all of this. I start with this that we discussed, and we stated, you and the keynote speaker in the beginning, that circular economy, it's a tool for sustainability. And I add here that it's a tool for resilience. So both. And it's not only going beyond environmental protection, it is not only environmental protection, waste management concepts, but it is societal concept and has to do with the society and the transition. It's not only economical and energetic or resources transition that we try to do now, but it's societal transition as well, which means that everything has to change somehow. So we need new toolboxes, new skills, and new learning processes. In order to give solution for these global challenges, so we need this global solution, which requires knowledge to build equal, inclusive, and sustainable and resilient systems. Three levels: society, ecology, economy. It's all these three levels. So it's a complex system, and that's as the first cannot say that when we deal with circular economy and circular economy solution, we deal with complex systems. And we need to take an holistic approach to deal with these systems. These are the new learning outcomes that we need for our students in universities and then in every level of education, in education anyway. Usually what we do, we are keen to increase scientific knowledge, to develop research capacity, to make the transfer of technology, to do innovation. But this, in order to succeed, societal transition has to go in parallel with some other transitions, some other changes that are changes of inequalities. And the first speaker said many things about this. I focus here mostly on gender equality or gender inequality, because in order to retrieve talents or to have a workforce that is skilled for this circular economy, Green Deal, and everything with this for the sustainable development, we need to put in the pool all the forces that we have in the society, and this needs equality. This needs gender equality as well in university, in education, in the solutions, in the innovation, in every sector. So, in the university or in education, usually, and being from a technological faculty, which is chemical engineering, we teach, all these processes that we need, for example, from what I'm doing, biorefinery, circular economy of processes for closing the loops in energy and material. These are known. It's what there are in the curriculum. We teach them. People or students, young students, they learn them. What they don't learn, or they need to learn, or they started to learn, or we have to continue in that way, it's how to connect under a systemic approach, all this. Because 1 + 1, it's not 2 now. 1 + 1, it's something else, because we have to see the interconnections of all these parts. So we have to move from reductionism to holistic, an holistic approach of things. And we have to apply this approach, to understand and to apply this approach to all these complex problems. But in order to do that, we need a transformation. So we need now to offer a transformative learning at education systems, because this deserves a role. And this can go together with technological achievement, invention, innovation. So, but this needs practically it needs to change first the narratives about the systems, about our in the relation with the systems, with the capacity, the capacity of the earth, who we are, how we connect with the systems. So this has to create a clear vision for sustainability and resilience first. And then we have to redesign this learning process. As I said, we need to take a systemic and a contextual analysis of the problem and to show the circularity and the closing loops. We need to change the way that we work. We need to work with other groups. So the interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity has to be really the tool there in the new learning.
Yeah.
We need responsibility and commitment this means we need ethics and values. So not only the systemic approach, but ethics and values, because we work within the different generations, different culture, different groups, and we need to align technology with soft skills to consolidate the knowledge and to build a human-centric leadership culture.
Yes, I agree completely with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ardi.
We'll come back to that later, because you make, of course, some very important remarks, say on the width of the scope of the viewpoint we need to take. Now we are, of course, from Germany, from Greece, from the Netherlands, fairly well developed countries. I'm trying to switch now to Jorge, because say as a representative from Africa, maybe Mozambique, I can imagine that some of the perspective we would like to take from a Western Europe point of view may be completely different from your perspective and from your background. So that the question might be posed, okay, what can we learn from, say, developments in other parts of the world which have a fairly different background and a different economic position, but which should make equally important contributions to the whole area of circular economy, because in the end it is a thing which will affect the entire world. And I guess, Jorge, from your experience, you're certainly able to make a few comments on how you view, say, that the connection between different parts of the world, less well-developed countries, etc., should be managed, or what should be done.
Thank you, Ardi. The linear economy, combined with the increase in the world population, has caused an increase in demand of raw materials, many of which are scarce and finite. Extraction and use of the raw materials increasing energy consumption and CO2 emission, with a great impact on the environment. Estimates indicate that the population of Africa will double in 2050, from the current 1.2 billion inhabitants to 2.4 billion, of which more than 6% will be under 25 years old. Circular economy generates direct jobs in the waste management sector, as well as a wide variety of jobs types requiring superior qualifications, for example, design, architecture, material engineering, and technical and technological qualification. At the same time, enabling a reduction of total annual greenhouse gas emission. This may be one of the options for dealing with the population growth in Africa. 2017 data show that unemployment rates in African countries far exceed the global average. Only 40% of the workforce is used for produced jobs, and 70% of that occupies vulnerable jobs. To change this situation, we must invest and cultivate highly qualified people, such as producers, consumers, and technology innovators. For this, we need to improve our educational system. I think that education is the first thing that we must do to go to this change of the situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's a clear statement. What is the first priority to change? Switching a little bit the perspective towards, say, the actual transition to the topic of this workshop, which is knowledge and science. you could say, okay, what is the role of science in the transition? Do we have all the science that is needed? Don't we have all the science, or do we need new perspectives on the science that in the end we will need? I think, Susanne, you already made a few remarks on that in the first question, but could you say something about your point of view on what is the role of science in this context? Is there a need to approach science differently, or should we organize science differently, or what is the role of science in the end?
Thank you, Ardi. I think Anastasia made a really important comment to go from this sort of very focused, maybe reductionist perspective to a more holistic one. And I think this is really one of the biggest challenges that science will need to face. I'm just giving a short example. When we talk about the circular economy, we mentioned some of the goals we want to achieve with it. We want to, through the reduction in resource consumption, we want to make sure that CO2 levels go down. We want to make sure that the ecosystem degradation is improving or being reduced. We want to make sure that the biodiversity losses are going down. So we have many different dimensions that need to be addressed. We see this in methodologies like LCAs, for example, which have addressed this. But still, previously, when we looked at the system, we had a sort of efficiency approach of how we optimize products. And this ended up in a situation where, if I take the example of packaging, we have this intensely thin layers of plastics materials, which are very lightweight. So for transporting them, the less weight, the less CO2 emissions you have in transport. But the effect is that we can't recycle them anymore. So that is the situation we are in at the moment. So if you come from this circular economy perspective and you want to improve this, if you want to have them more modular, for example, if you want to have them better recyclable, you might need to use more material. So you have the different aspects. Do I optimize for reduced CO2 emissions? Do I optimize for reduced material input? Or maybe can I optimize for both? Same thing, I think, is if you look at this new technology of chemical recycling. So the aim of the technology is obvious. You want to reduce the primary raw material input and you want to improve the quality of secondary raw materials. But some of those technologies are very energy intensive, so they come with a huge CO2 footprint. And again, when is the best situation to use these new technologies in a sensible manner? What's the role of mechanical recycling versus chemical recycling? And these are some of the big questions that science still needs to address. One further point, I think, is the whole social aspect. You know, we need rooms for experimentation. We need to find out how can people, can citizens, can kids be motivated to really appreciate the value of the things and products and materials that they touch every day. And we really reach this mind shift from this throwaway to this, I want to reuse, I want to repair, and get people to motivated to do this. And I think this is one of the big challenges, especially for the social sciences as well.
Yes, and it's also a very nice topic to work on, of course. So.
Absolutely.
Now that also because of COVID, of course, we have this meeting in a digital fashion. So you can say many things about that. Personally, I'm happy because it reduces my travel time by 2 hours a day. So for me, that's okay.
Absolutely.
But you miss contact with people, of course. So that is, of course, a big disadvantage. I would like to have this workshop in a physical fashion, of course. That would have been much nicer. But okay, we have to live with that. But here we see, of course, that saying the importance of ICT, IT technologies, and everything related to that is, of course, was already shaping our world, but is continuing to do so. Probably will increase over the next decades. So these new because they are already quite old, effectively, enabler technologies could be extremely important in the way we shape this circular economy. And Christian, I'm sure you consider these topics in the work you're doing. How do you see the influence of IT, maybe also of artificial intelligence, in the projects you are doing? Which direction could that go in the end?
Yeah, as I'm working on automation in industrial IT, this is exactly my my topic that I like to work on. What we see, and Anastasia said it very well, so we have a very interdisciplinary research project. So it's no longer the mechanical engineer or the electronic engineer, but it's also always the information science person that is involved. And we see, when we look at all the new production and recycling processes that are coming up at the moment, and also in order to recycle the most complex materials, there is a huge problem how to monitor and increase process efficiency in these processes, because there's so much measurement technology, and also a lot of data is gathered. And if you look at it from a statistical point of view, only 50% of all the production and recycling data that is gathered is analyzed. The rest is just there, but nobody's using it. And there's a lot of information and knowledge in there. And the biggest problem for the industry right now is really a knowledge gap, and also to find qualified personnel. So when we have our students finish, they immediately have a job. So they do not even need to look for one, because there's such a high demand. And the reason is that there's a huge need for digitalization platforms in industry that actually gather all the information, put them together, visualize them, also for an operator or for a user in a easily understandable and manageable way. And also then this data can be used for efficient process control. And there's a lot of optimization potential in there. For example, Anastasia, you mentioned pyrolysis. We are developing process control systems for pyrolysis plants, for example. So this is something where it fits quite well.
Absolutely. So you have to collaborate.
Yeah. And and there is actually also where artificial intelligence and machine learning are really key competencies that we need. Another very good example is intelligent product design. So we need to have a more reverse thinking process, I would say, in circular economy. So the design needs to think about the recycling. So it's kind of looking backwards. And there we can see that to optimize a design is so much easier if you have a digital twin, and then you can actually use artificial intelligence optimization methods to actually really speed up the design process, and you have a much more faster time to market. And this is also valuable for industry. The other thing that I can see where we have a huge topic where ICT needs to provide a solution is that we have almost no information exchange between design, production, recycling. So in this whole circle that we are describing, everybody's doing their own thing, but nobody is transferring data to the other stakeholders. And this is something where we need maybe even new standards, but even with the standards we need to have a strong information exchange. And therefore, we need platforms that can do this and that can handle this. So for example, when somebody is assembling a new product, the list of materials that are used should be directly available to the recycling company, or even how to disassemble it, the instructions. It should be directly digitally available, maybe even with virtual reality applications where necessary, that people understand how to take things apart. So there is a lot of things that need to be taken care of. And I think this is really where ICT and also artificial intelligence can create a benefit. But not alone. I'm always saying if you do artificial intelligence or ICT without knowledge of the processes and also on the other technologies, there will never be a good solution. So it has to be a joint effort. Only then that is working. And that's a challenge, but I think we are ready for it.
Yes, so that would bring us into something like smart industries 7.0 or so, that sort of wording, yes. Thank you very much. I think the importance of these technologies cannot be underestimated as a whole. for everything we are trying to achieve. And that brings me to another point that what you all mentioned is, of course, that we need new sets of skills, yes, because thinking about these complex systems, thinking about how to integrate these new technologies in these complicated value chains is one thing, but we need to have people who are able to make a narrative of these complex things, to explain where the gaps are, where the needs are, and in the end turn up in positions in society where they can really make a difference in decision-making process. So we need, say, to think about what are the future agents and the future leaders in the circular economy. I think, Anastasia, that relates partly to the points you previously made, that this is also an important part of, say, education, maybe bringing together all sorts of stakeholders as a whole. So probably you can say something about that, how to address the issue of, say, creation of future generations that will even faster be able to even faster promote the development of circular economy.
Yes, thank you, Ardi. This is really a good question, and it's really an issue, how to do this. We need to offer to these students, if we speak about the scientific workforce that we need for circular economy, that they come from universities or the technical, technological schools. I mean, this age, not the other education, the previous education, which is in the early age, but I speak about the university education. Here, we need to acquaint our students with technological and social innovations. And to do that, we need to invent or to create new forms of doing so. Not only by the curriculum, not only in the project that we have in the university, but we need extracurriculum activities. For example, like living labs, or like social labs, or like labs with the society, where the students, they can work for a societal problem, which is circular economy problem, which is innovation problem, or with a startup to know how they can, or spin-off creation, all this. This needs an exchange, this needs a mobility, this needs partnership, this needs industry under the umbrella of strong collaboration. Finally, this is strong collaboration. And all this, under this umbrella, there are forms of collaboration. I'm very keen, and I think that mobility of students, and now in this workshop, since we connect the three continents, we want to connect, and we speak about global solution, and we want to connect South Africa, Brazil, and Europe. I think that good idea is to increase mobility and to find initiative to increase this mobility, especially of students. Mobility, partnership with university with startup, university with innovation center, university with industry, with company, with projects, societal projects. So students from, for example, I give an example, from South Africa can come in Europe, in laboratories, in startups, in companies, in business. And our students, they can go there and to see on situ the project that is taking, that is implementing, and to see there the environment, the ecology, the system where this is applied. It's very important. Exchanging cultural, this word, keyword culture, was mentioned in the keynote speaker by the in the beginning. Yes, culture. We need to know the culture of the other. We need to know the other. We need to know the environment of the other in order to create something in common. Because whatever we create here under circular economy or sustainability, it's for all of us. Because it's this this behavior, this phenomenon of the spillover phenomenon that makes that what I'm doing here, it has an effect on you, or what you are doing, it is good, so I can take it, I can be inspired of it. So we need this kind of internships, mobility, exchange, partnership. We need training, and we can do this with specific and very devoted and different type of workshops. They can be national workshops, they can be international, intergenerational workshop, personal development workshop, because we need this as well. And we need a leadership. And I'm very keen for a leadership to be different from what we have experienced until now. So that's why I call, and maybe you are aware, soft leadership, where we put some soft elements, and we focus on the character, we focus on the personality, we focus on inspiration, and we focus on the courage, because it needs courage to apply this new innovation, new thinking, and a new way of doing, consuming, and producing. It needs courage. It needs character, needs commitment, and it needs a very good communication as well. I mean,
I cannot agree more with you than what you just said, that in the end it is about individuals taking individual actions from their own belief for what would be best for our world. So thank you very much. Jorge, now, if you would consider, say, because you mentioned in your previous question that, say, education is a very important topic from your perspective. One of the things I think Anastasia also mentioned, of course, is that circular economy can be a source for new jobs. You see that happening also, of course, in Europe and in other parts of the world. Do you also see it in your world happening, or are there some blockades in the system which hamper the development of new jobs in your environment? Can you say something about that, or what could we do about that?
Thank you again, Ardi. I will answer this question with an example. South Africa has been standing out for its action in the implementation of a circular economy, mainly in tower waste management. REDISA, Recycling and the Economic Development Initiative South Africa, has been developing with government support a strategy to avoid the deposit in landfill of more than 125,000 tons of used tires. Since 2012, they have gone from a recycling rate of 4% to around 19% in 2014. The initiative is also supported by around 119 small and medium enterprises that ensure the recycling and reuse of end-of-life tires, while increasing around 2,500 jobs. In a country where unemployment reached worrying numbers, continuing to be considered one of the main economic and social challenge, the circular economy may become a dynamo for new sector, fostering the creation of new jobs. This is my view.
Okay. Are there any particular blockades that you see which should be removed in order to make this happen faster?
I don't understand.
You sketch an optimistic picture, say, of how circular economy helps to create new jobs. Yes, my question is, if we would try to stimulate this even more, to make more progress, are there particular blockades you see that should be removed in order to speed up things? Is there a block from worldwide trade agreements, or is it typically national laws that hinder development? What is your view on that?
Yes, I think that like I said, we must first invest in the education, because the rate of education in my country is very low. We need to improve the education in primary and secondary school and in the university. Like said Anastasia, we make sure the students from our country, the university or students from Mozambique or from Africa to Europe, and from Europe to Latin America, because the labs, it's very expensive. And in our country, you don't have money to support the labs and the investigation. And I think that if we improve the capacity of knowledge of our people, it's very, very fast to do the development in this kind of economy. And I think that we, in Mozambique, like Mozambique, we have a lot of renewable energy. We have solar, hydro, biomass, and geological renewable energy, and this is a big component to put in the circular economy to improve the creation of jobs.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. I was looking at the clock, so I asked also to our host how much time we have actually left, because I cannot see at this moment, so maybe someone could inform me. But we will continue the session simply until we get notice from that. One of the important perspectives of a circular economy is, of course, the second word, which means economy. Circular is nice, but in the end, economy, of course, is also important. And I think you are all aware that in the context of a circular economy, we hear a lot of new business models or earning models. I do not know the precise wording. I'm not an economist at all. So I think it is justified to spend a few words on, say, the importance of these business models, earning models. And Susanne, I think in the experience you sketched, in the collaboration we have, say there will be ample discussion about proper business models. And we can do everything as a service. I do not know where in the end that is a good solution. There are many other alternatives, but maybe you can spend a few words on, say, the importance of development in that area.
Yeah, thank you, Ardi. Yeah, we've heard it so many times. Cooperation is key. Yeah, and Janis mentioned it this morning. It's important to repeat these aspects, and it's cooperation is key for science. It's key for education. It's, as Jorge also outlined now, and it's key in the business context as well, because it's totally clear that circular solutions cannot really be successfully implemented by one firm alone. We need to move from this sort of value chains that we have to value cycles, value networks. We need to have these circular ecosystems. This is really at the core of this transition in the circular economy. So, and when as this is happening, we need to make sure that the different circular business models that are being developed by the different actors in this ecosystem also pay into this into the progress towards a circular economy. So it seems that we need to have some kind of orchestrator who really cooperates with these different companies and firms to make sure that you're moving in the right direction. So this could be, for example, a producer who's coordinating this process with retailers, with users, with recyclers and the recycling platforms in order to make sure that these circular business models pay into moving us towards more circularity. And then, of course, there are new roles developing in these ecosystems. So where previously maybe a resource company would mainly look into resource extraction in the future, and now we come to these new business models that are developing, they could look into offering recycling facilities or recycling services, for example. We have the manufacturers that in the past looked mainly at the aspect of selling products, and then in the future, we might look into different services. So the product as a service, of course, is the most famous business model that's being talked about. And in this context, of course, some of the digital technologies that were mentioned by Christian are hugely important because they really provide the basis to get the joint information of how to optimize these processes and to really reach at a point where we can facilitate the circular management of those products jointly.
Yes. I think you're completely right. And say the development of tools like material or product passports will be
Please try to wrap up your presentation within 5 minutes, please.
Christian
Thank you.
mentioned that say there might be the true added value of IT, artificial intelligence, and all that sort of tools. And I think we will only see the beginning of the development of these new models.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in 20 to 30 years, we will probably live in an entirely different world.
Yeah.
And that makes the picture, of course, even more complicated because what we sketched in the beginning, of course, that circular economy as such is not an isolated transition because it is combining or adhering to or to the energy transition, as we call it, this food transition, maybe also a safety transition, a health transition, a digital transition, and all these things happen at the same time. And that does not make things much simpler, of course, if you would try to solve them all at once. So my question actually also to Anastasia, to break the circle, excuse me, what is your view on how should we handle all these transitions simultaneously? Is that possible, or should we split them and do it one at a time?
It's because I speak about systemic approaches. I think it's not, we have to tackle, we have to go towards each transition. The pace of each transition, maybe it's not the same. We don't have the same pace to every transition. But for circular economy, we need the transition to renewable energy. We need to see now the climate change, the resilience to climate change impact, because as I work with biomass and biomaterials, and bioresidues and waste, there the climate change has a very important impact on agriculture and on crops. So that affects as well the renewable energy that comes from biomass or biomaterial, bio-based material that come from there. So we have to face all, I think. We cannot to take this systematic approach, but this needs collaboration. This needs collaboration from the policy, from all these ministers and all these governmental bodies and everything. And this needs, an acceleration of pace to every sector. It's difficult, but it's not. It can be achieved if all sectors, if education, governance, industrial sector, agriculture, energy sector, we understand that there is a need to go farther and not to stay there we are. So we have just to open this to see this in the relation of the system, which is the more sensitive. What is then the relation between agriculture? For example, this we discussed, but we don't discuss so much now. For example, in Greece or like in all Mediterranean, we cannot trust, for example, the amount of residues that are produced or the industrial sector in order to develop biobusiness or bioenergy business. They don't trust the availability of the raw material, which is the biomass, because the climate change has such an impact on this. There we need the transition to the new, to the food safety, to agriculture and everything. So we cannot go towards the renewable energy concerning my domain, which bioenergy and bio-based material, if there is no transition to this food safety or to agriculture, to see agriculture in their way. So they have to go together because it's this different part of the system, but the system moves as a whole.
Yes, I agree. So that means, going back to the topic of this workshop, knowledge and science will be needed for another 100 years or so before we can solve all these difficult, nasty questions. Wicked problems, as they are sometimes called, in complexity science. We need to address that sort of issues, of course. I think with that we come to the end of this workshop. I just got a little bit of information for that. I want to thank all of the speakers very much for their contribution, for their point of views, and sharing their experience with actually implementing and developing these circular economy projects and ideas. I think that was very nice and very useful to all of you. I want to thank the audience probably around the world for enduring our conversation. Hopefully it was a little bit useful to be able to listen to our experiences. Of course, I want to thank Jorge Nunez for organizing the event. I know he spent a lot of time and a lot of effort in putting all of this together. And in the end, we think we should thank the Portuguese presidency for taking the initiative to organize this conference and this workshop on circular economy. Thank you very much. Thank you all. And I hope I will be able to see you one day in a physical form. That would be very nice. Thank you very much, and we will be in touch. Thank you.